Personality style isn't just about how you prefer to dress. It's also about understanding the deeper patterns that drive your energy and your authentic self-expression. Most people think Myers-Briggs is just four random letters, but when you understand the cognitive functions, which is the next layer deeper in the system, you unlock the secret to sustained energy and you take the first step toward a style that truly reflects who you are. I'm Rebecca Mielke, and I translate personality and style systems into design principles you can use to create a signature style that actually feels like you. Today, I'll explain how Myers-Briggs is a much more useful system than most people think and how to get started using it for style. Have you ever heard of flow state research? So there's a psychologist whose name I cannot begin to pronounce, but I don't know if you knew this. Every one of these episodes is also an article on my website, signaturestylesystems.com. So if you want to see the name, so you can look it up, you can do that over there. Anyway, he conducted a fascinating experiment where he identified what got people into their natural flow state, then asked them to avoid those activities for just 2 weeks. The results were so dramatic that he had to stop the experiment in like 2 days. People were becoming anxious, distressed, and some were even having minor accidents. This research reveals that when we can't access our natural flow state, we don't just feel a little tired or unmotivated. We actually start to experience serious symptoms similar to depression or anxiety. Your dominant cognitive function is your personal flow state. So that's why it matters what your Myers-Briggs type is. And if you're one letter off, it can mean that you don't really understand what your flow state is. You can miss that. And then when your life prevents you from using your dominant function regularly, the impact on your mental health and energy is profound. So most people know Myers-Briggs as the four letters like ENFJ or ISTP, but that is just the top layer. Those four letters are actually a code that reveals which cognitive functions you use preferentially and in what order. So you can think of it like a sandwich where the meat is in the middle. The middle dichotomies in the four-letter stack are N or S. The first one is N or S, which stands for intuition and sensing. And then the second one is F or T, which stands for feeling and thinking. So each of those, intuition, sensing, feeling, thinking, those are the cognitive functions. But here's what a lot of people don't realize. Each of those four letters has two different versions. There's an extroverted version that you use to interface with the outer world, and then there's an introverted version that you use for processing in your inner world. So then the bread is the I and the E and the I and the J and the P. And those letters tell us which order the intuition and sensing, feeling and thinking go in, and whether each one is being used in the inner world or the outer world, because everybody needs both. You need both a way to interact with yourself in the interior and a way to interact with the world. So the division between your inner and outer world is your skin. That determines where each function operates. So here's a brief definition of each of the functions. Um, Listen to these definitions and see if you can recognize yourself in them. So the perceiving functions are how you learn and take in information. This process is very open and exploratory. Introverted intuition is learning through pattern recognition in contemplation and then taking other perspectives. And you can use this, you can use any of these, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. And then extroverted intuition is learning by pattern recognition in real time through exploration, like brainstorming, that type of thing. Introverted sensing is learning through sensory experience in rumination. So you're post-processing memories. Then extroverted sensing is learning by sensory experience, but in real time, being in the moment through sensation. So if one of these, those four is your dominant function, you sustain energy by learning. So why not focus some of that energy on learning about yourself and what to wear that feels like you? Then the judging functions, that's how you make decisions. That's how you evaluate the information that the perceiving functions bring you. So extroverted thinking measures by effectiveness. It answers the question, does this, or it asks the question, does this help me get things done? Introverted thinking measures by accuracy. Does this make logical sense to me? In extroverted feeling measures by social harmony. Does this create connection and fit the context? And then introverted feeling measures by authenticity. Does this reflect who I am and how I'm feeling? So if one of these is your dominant function, you need opportunities to make decisions. And your wardrobe is perfect playground for making decisions. I think, to be honest, that's why part of why I got so into this is because um, the hero, my late husband, was really, he worked in architecture, so he cared about all the decisions about the house. And so I didn't have that situation where, the husband says, yo, just do whatever you want. So the only area that I had that where I could like exercise full autonomy and make all the decisions was my wardrobe. And I do lead with a judging function. And it's actually been really healthy for me. Um, so yeah, when my kids were growing up, I did experience firsthand what happens when you can't access your dominant function. I was on a really low budget and I was living in a pretty conservative social environment. My dominant function is extroverted feeling, which is a judging function that's focused on like group dynamics and getting people's needs met in the outer world, social harmony. So this was devastating in ways that I couldn't articulate. I could not like I would think of a solution and then that wouldn't work and I couldn't explain what was wrong and why I was yeah, like low-key depressed. The conservative social environment meant opportunities for the kind of deep, values-based conversations that energized me were like slim to none. And then the low budget meant I just looked like everyone else. I couldn't really, like, I didn't have the skills to dress in ways that invited more connection or express my personality. And I was pretty depressed. And I didn't know about Myers-Briggs and cognitive functions and couldn't articulate why. Eventually, that season passed, but it took me a good while before I was able to achieve a good rhythm of activities that have me using my extroverted feeling most days. Um, yeah, so I think they figured out that 2 days is the longest you should go without accessing your flow state. So, and then the way I dress definitely serves me in that now. So I dress in color very approachably, and I'll often wear something that's a little bit out of the ordinary or experimental. And that gives me the opportunity when somebody comments on it to tell a little story and have a little bit of a connection. Once you understand your dominant function, you can make style choices and lifestyle choices that support rather than hinder your natural energy patterns. So here are some ways that you can work this into your wardrobe. For the perceiving functions, the introverted intuition is future focused. So these are all about kind of time orientation. If you have introverted intuition, that is, if your personality has an N and a J, both, you're future focused and you can look fashion forward and look like yourself. Extroverted intuition is really atemporal. And so you can mix disparate elements easily. So this would be if you have an N and a P in your Myers-Briggs code. Introverted sensing is fantastic in timeless and vintage pieces. And then this is if you have an S and a J in your Myers-Briggs code. And then extroverted sensing is in the moment, and you should move fast when you see a new style that looks like fun. And this is if you have an S and a P in your Myers-Briggs code. Okay, so for the judging functions, I think I said this all already, but I'll just say it real quick, I guess. Extroverted thinking, that's if you have a TJ, ask yourself, does this help me get things done? Introverted thinking, that is if you have a T and a P, ask yourself, does this make logical sense for me? Extroverted feeling, that's if your code has an F and a J, ask yourself, does this create connection and fit the context? And introverted feeling, if it has an F and a P, does this reflect who I am and how I'm feeling? When you understand that your dominant cognitive function is your flow state, you can work on setting up your life to support you. You can stop trying to force yourself into energy patterns that don't work for you, and you can start making choices, including style choices, that support your natural rhythms. Knowing your dominant cognitive function is the most effective way to better energy and to authentic personality style. It's not about following rules or copying someone else's approach. It's about understanding yourself at a deeper level. Here's something simple you can do this week to integrate these principles into your wardrobe. Notice which styles intimidate you, and then ask yourself why. One of my community members shared recently, some of the most rewarding things in life involve intimidation. That intimidation comes from caring deeply, mixed in with the fear that your caring will be in vain. So this week, journal about this. What fashion choices intimidate you? What are you afraid might happen if you wore that? How might your dominant function be calling you toward personality style that feels scary, but also exciting? Remember, when you understand your cognitive function patterns, you can trust that the intimidation might actually be pointing you toward more authentic style choices. For another angle on how to dress for your dominant function, check out the free downloadable Guide to Design Psychology. You can find the link in the show description or at my website, signaturestylesystems.com. And if you're ready to discover your specific cognitive function pattern and how it applies to your personal style, I invite you to explore personality profiling, which includes your personality style booklet. Or if you already know your type, you can buy the booklet and get started today. Thanks for being here for the Signature Style Systems podcast. Have fun being you, and I will meet you back here again real soon.